I really want to thank everybody for coming on tonight for our session on affordability of community-based cycling programs, to charge or not to charge. That is the question. That's our title for tonight. And we are going to have Steve McCauley from the USA Cycling Foundation as our guest moderator tonight, along with Durango, Devo, and Star Track, and he'll be introducing them. So just to give you a broad overview of what we've been doing is we've actually done a needs assessment of the sport of cycling within youth cycling over the last several weeks. And one of the critical things that came up was affordability of these programs. And a lot of the programs that we talked about were at the local level. And so I thought it would be very good to bring on two of the larger institutions from our country that work in this space and be able to have a really open discussion about what those costs are and where they get their funding from, and how that all works within their communities, and how they differ between these two different organizations, and how that looks across our landscape of cycling here in the United States. So now I'll pass it over to Steve to introduce our speakers and get us started.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. And one thing I was instructed to do was to tell everybody who I am and where I work. I've been raising money for our national team and our national team development programs at the junior level since 1998, raising money for USA Cycling's athletic programs through what we call the USA Cycling Foundation. And my current job is a bit of everything. It's some administrative and some fundraising, and then I've also got a couple of other duties inside of USA Cycling related to international relations. The foundation was created, initially the foundation was created after the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia, after the mountain bike events. And it was really led in the beginning by people from the mountain bike industry and the cycling industry in an effort to leverage USA Cycling to create better mountain bike development programs. And those folks hired me, and then I moved on when we merged with USA Cycling Foundation and created a specific foundation similar to other Olympic sports. Almost every Olympic sport now has a foundation doing fundraising because we do not receive any government money for Olympic athlete development. So I've been there for quite a while, and I've seen a lot at USA Cycling. I'm happy to answer questions about that later on if anybody has questions. And I met both Sarah and Pete through, through the foundation. We have a program called Centers of Excellence inside the foundation that awards grants to junior teams that do excellent work. And both Durango, Devo, and Star Track are long-standing junior development programs that do excellent work. And so the foundation has granted money to both of these organizations in the past, and I've gotten to know both of them through that. And so we'll have both Pete and Sarah tell you about their programs, which are quite interesting, quite unique, very different in based on just the nature of the venues that they have, where to ride, and we'll talk about charging fees or not charging fees, and get into that as we go along. So hello, Pete and Sarah. I think we'll start with Sarah first. And we'll see if I can get my control to work here. No, there we go. Oh, sorry. Okay. So Sarah, why don't you give the group just a brief overview, who you are and what you do and who you serve.
Yeah, so you guys can spend some time just sort of reading this. I don't feel like I need to read it to you guys. We're on the call, but yeah, so currently I work as the coach training educator for Durango Devo. I'm a co-founder of the program. We were established in 2006. And I've served in a couple different roles within the organization, and from like president to executive director to program manager. And all the while, I've always made sure that I continue to coach. So coaching and being with the kids is really where my passion lies. But of course, along the way, having been in so many different roles, I've learned a lot. So I oversee Durango's Secret Sauce training seminars, or Secret Sauce, which is basically Devo's way of sharing everything we know with the junior cycling world. And so it's partly fundraising for Durango Devo. And so, yeah. And so today I'm just, Sean asked about Durango Devo, and sort of it's basically how we charge and why we charge. And it really, for us, boils down to our mission. And our mission is to develop each athlete or individual in a team camaraderie setting into lifelong cyclists. And so what we charge, how we charge, when we charge, really all comes back to the mission of the nonprofit. And so, yeah. So, and I don't know if you want Steve to, that's a 2-minute video at the bottom that you can just copy and paste and play. But if it's just going to be too much of an issue, technology, it's okay. We can skip it and everyone can kind of see it. And maybe I could put it in the chat for everyone.
No, I think that's a great idea to just share that in the chat, and then everybody can check that out later. So let's flip back over to Pete and his quick overview of Star Trek.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, Pete Taylor. I'm a co-executive director of Star Trek. We are a program that was started in 2004 in New York City, in Queens. But one of the differences, and there's many differences between us and Devo, but one of those is that we are primarily a track program. So we have an outdoor velodrome in Casino, Queens that we use. And we are a program that just gets kids on bikes. So, and we're completely inclusive. So whatever demographic that you might identify in, we got a place for you. As long as you're between 8 and 14 years old, we'll put you on a track bike and we'll teach you how to ride. And let's back up. We don't teach you how to ride. We teach you how to ride a track bike. So anybody that comes to the program is someone that can ride a two-wheeler unassisted, and between the ages of 8 and 14. And we get them out on the velodrome. We teach them how to ride the velodrome, to race, and just really empower them to be on their bikes and get out of the house. So that's pretty much what we are.
All right. So we're going to switch back to Sarah and your mission and values, and I brought up that slide. And you've got it pretty well broken down here for everybody to see. And one thing I wanted to ask you is, how many full-time employees does the organization have?
Full-time employees, the only full-time employee that we have is the executive director. We have 120 coaches. Obviously, all of those are part-time. And then we have a lower level program manager, an upper level program manager, a director of development, and then myself as the coach trainer. And then we also have someone in charge of social media. So those are all our staff, and all of them are part-time.
Gotcha. And total paid, even including part-time, total paid people that you have working are how many?
So Durango Devo pays everybody. We pay our coaches, we pay our assistant coaches, we pay our executive director. The only people who aren't paid are our board of directors, obviously. And then we also have some volunteer coaches. So out of 120 coaches or so, we'll have like 10 or so that are volunteer. We also have what's called a mentorship program. And so the mentorship program is where we take our high school, junior, sometimes middle school, but athletes and riders, and then they mentor the lower levels. And so what we ask of our mentorship program is that those kids give 2 seasons of coaching before they're paid. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes they want to volunteer longer. It kind of depends. Sometimes kids have different school responsibilities and things like that, where they need to get community hours. But so that's pretty much everyone in Devo is paid.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
That's, I like it. I'm going to flip back to Pete now and essentially ask you the same question.
Well, it's fluid, that's for sure. But in terms of coaches, we sort of fluctuate between 7 coaches to 11 coaches in a year. Yeah, the same faces all the time. All our coaches are paid. It's one of the things that it started off with New York City Parks Department that we answer to, because we actually had the space of the track from them. One of the things just to get us past the employee situation was we had to pay the coaches so they would be covered under insurance and things like that. So that to be paid, and I think it really just helps the coaches have a better sense of pride in what they do, and they all become licensed coaches, and it sort of validates what we do. So I like that a lot. We have 2 executive directors, myself and an amazing guy called David Harrison, and we run the program between us. And I think that's it. Any other part of that question I've missed?
Nope, that's it. That's great.
Okay. Right.
So obviously, demographics that are very far apart between Queens and Durango, but I think this is, to me, one of the great things about Durango Devo is how deep it goes into the community. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, Sarah. It seems like almost everyone in Durango is very closely related to Durango Devo in some way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thanks for saying that. And I mean, the population you can see of Durango is a little over 18,000. It's increased over the years, as many of these small mountain communities have. And it's pretty sweet. Like, we are generally broken into an 8-week program in the spring. Our summer looks a little different than another 8-week in the fall. We're like an after school sport, right? So we look very different, or very similar to like soccer. And it's pretty cool, like at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, to see all the kids cruising across town, trying to get to their practice, or parents with kids bikes on the back of their rack, and they're on their way to practice. And so what's really unique about Durango, that when I work with lots of other programs, it's good to keep in mind, is our trail system is so close. And so it's so centrally located. I can get right now from my house in downtown Durango to about 5 different trail systems. So that is really unique to Durango, and a huge asset towards us being able to be successful within the community, being such a huge part of the community. And then obviously, when I made this slide, I just really wanted for people to see, if the average cost of a home is a little over 600,000. That's probably increased actually since COVID, but we can charge, right? There's a lot of programs that I work with that, like right now I'm working with Silverton or Gallup, and they can't charge, and it is unique to Durango, certainly. And while we only charge 55% of our annual budget, we are able to charge, and that is unique to Durango. That's for sure. Mm-hmm.
So, quick question for you regarding, yes, obviously most kids in Durango can afford to pay something. Their families can afford to pay something. What about the kids in the community? How do you identify need for kids that really can't afford, or families that can't afford to be a part of the program? Is there a system that you employ to identify need?
Yeah, so I don't know if it was the slide before the next one, but our scholarship is around 20,000 that we keep in our fund, and we give to kids in the community. And so we have a scholarship application, but we don't ask for any financials or anything like that. If people are asking for help, we're dedicated to helping them. So it looks very different from other scholarship forms where you're asking for financials. We don't ask for that. We also ask a lot of counselors and teachers to recommend kids to us. And, you know, I mean, I would love to have 100% of the kids in Durango who want to ride bikes and be in Devo to be able to have access to us. And that is our goal every season, is to make sure that if a kiddo wants to ride their bike with Devo, that we make sure that that's available. And we're pretty dedicated to making that happen. You know, even in the early years when our scholarship program wasn't $20,000, if there wasn't enough money in the scholarship fund, we have a whole list of individuals in the community that we can call and beg and just say, we've got this kid, they want to be in the program, can you help? And we just have a really tight knit community. So we never turn kids away.
That's really cool.
That's great. Pete, I'm going to go back to your demographics and program costs.
Sure.
Queens is very different.
Very.
Give us an overview.
Well, you know, first of all, we don't just take kids from Queens. We're any of the New York City boroughs. So historically, we were set up to just give riding opportunities to any kid from the under-resourced areas. And you know, most of the velodrome itself is actually based in a very Asian American area. So we get a lot of Chinese American kids and Korean Americans, and that's been fabulous. The thing that we really wanted to create was riding with zero barriers. So whatever demographic that you came from, or whatever your income at home was, it was a free program. And so when we say free, we actually will supply the bikes, we supply helmets, and kids for the first 3 semesters turn up to the track in just regular street clothes, and no cycling shoes, just sneakers, and just go ride. And that's what we do. And then on completion of the 3rd semester, when we know that they're in and they really want to pursue cycling more, we'll give them a uniform. And so they'll get 1 set of kit, and we beg, borrow, and steal everything else. But for the most part, you know, everybody's really happy with that setup. And we still are very proud that we are a completely 100% free program.
So there's no fee for the Parks and Rec. All the kids have to do is their waivers, parent waivers, and that's it.
Yep. So we are, as I said before, we are sort of slightly under the auspices of New York City Parks Department, because they actually own the track. So there is a code of conduct and a rider contract that we all have to adhere to, that, you know, once a year we go to New York City Parks and we sort of thrash out the contract for that year. So yeah, there's a waiver, there's a photographic waiver, and just an agreement to do things the Star Trek way, which is being thankful and to ride and to be, you know, good sportsmen and women, and go from there. And as it says on the slide, we are free, but I'd imagine, like yourself, that, you know, 51 and a half weeks of my year is sort of driven to trying to raise money, and everything we do is just purely and simply on private donation. And it's not easy, but we get there.
Yeah, I certainly was aware you were doing a lot of fundraising, and of course, we've talked about that a lot in the past. And you guys do a great job, by the way, of funding that program. And
I'll just add to that, Steve, that if a rider wants to race, we won't step in their way. So we'll support that as much as we can. So they'll either race, if they want to race at the track, then we'll make that happen. Star Trek coaches will turn up at pretty much any race that a kid wants to race at. and we'll support them. But if they want to race, then generally they'll bring themselves to the race, and we'll get there.
Yep.
there and support them.
So yeah, that does bring up the question. You've really developed what I call a regional and a national travel program for your Star Trek kids.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a program to take kids to select races, to Trexlertown Velodrome down in Pennsylvania, and to nationals, wherever those are. And how do kids and parents, is there a set fee that you come up with, whatever it costs, or are you also subsidizing that to an extent?
We subsidize everything to an extent. The coaches, many times at a race, the coaches are unpaid. I imagine 95% of the time the coaches are unpaid that turn up. So many times we'll have this situation where we'll tell a parent that if you get to the race, then we can support you thereafter. In recent months, with grants from RAFA and from the wonderful USA Cycling Foundation, we've been able to buy a minibus, 15-seat minibus, which has really helped us. We can get kids to and from races a lot easier now. So and training camps, races, whatever we can do, if we can fit them in, we'll get them. And there are parents and riders that obviously are financially stable and they can bring themselves to the races, and they're very happy to do it. But we support them with it.
So, Sarah, same question really for you. I know that there are high school teams that you're feeding into that are racing the Colorado circuit, and maybe there's some races in New Mexico too that are a part of that. But do you have any type of a formal program or a program where kids can pay to do other races or go to nationals or anything like that?
Well, a couple things. I think first and foremost is, and Sean's going to get a chuckle out of this, I don't like focusing the question on racing. I think that Devo does a great job at serving all kids riding their bikes, regardless of whether they race or not. And so we have a lot of things going on. Sometimes we have the bike packing program that leaves and goes on a trip, right? Mm-hmm. That probably costs the program more. And so it's not really just about racing at all in terms of like extra, costing the program extra, right? To take these kids and make sure that they have these experiences in which they want to become lifelong cyclists. But you asked about racing, and so I'll answer that question. So we build that into our program fees. The only additional money they generally spend is when, so like if the van travels to nationals and we bring the kids with us, we bring the kids with us, we will split up the gas, the food, and the lodging amongst the kids that go on that trip. And so we don't ever charge extra generally for coaching, but we do sort of like, okay, so, pre-COVID, 15 passenger van, we have 2 of them, we've got 30 kids. So we're going to split that gas, and we're going to split the lodging and split the food amongst all those kids. And so that's kind of the way that we do that. Mm-hmm.
Great. No, and just really, I will say that your program is so diverse. It's quite remarkable. And I do feel that we're lucky to have a program like that. And it really, as a leader for hopefully other communities around the country that have access, like you have access to different venues for riding, to diversify like you have. So it's pretty impressive. I think I asked that question because I know that Pete has just been such a strong supporter of allowing kids the opportunity to race if they wanted to. And right. I would tell you that Star Trek was not originally a race program at all. It was strict. Yeah. Yeah. Strictly.
Racing for us is a byproduct.
Yeah.
Of what we do.
Well, I would say this, that, I'm not sure people on the call are aware, but these 2 programs have been responsible without even trying for many, many national championships, many kids that have become national champions in their various age groups, many kids that have gone on to race in Europe with the national team or have come to the national team programs from both of these programs. There's collegiate national champions that have come from both of these programs. And so while racing is obviously not a focus and really, more of a Norwegian approach to having fun in sport in both groups, you have to give big kudos to both programs for allowing kids to reach their full potential in terms of speed. So I would say thank you. So back to why we're charging and why we're not charging. I skipped a slide here that Pete really you lay it out here that you're in a community where people really can't afford to have their kids participate in sports. So maybe talk about that just for a moment.
We want to be as diverse and equitable and inclusive as we can. So when we say that, we absolutely mean it. Whatever you like to do, whatever you like to be, if you want to come and ride a bike on a velodrome, come and see us. It's as simple as that. And we have kids from all backgrounds, all shapes, all sizes, all creeds, all colors, whatever. And we, us as the directors and the coaches, we love it. And I think that if we was to start charging, we'd take away a lot of that purity, if you want to call it that. And we have this open door policy of riding, and the kids really, the only people that stop riding are the kids. We at one point we aged kids out at 14 years old, and then Dave and I took the program over, and we said, well, we can't see kids just getting aged out just because they've become 14, 15 years old. So we created a race team. So if any of the kids that wanted to stay on with the program and just carry on doing what they're doing because they love it, regardless of whether they've got the racing talent or the resume that a lot of people need, just stay. And that's how we did that. And we, as it said there, some families can help out by donations, and those that can, for the most part, do. And they've been wonderful. Our parents are wonderful. We don't need, sometimes money is not really what we need. I mean, it sounds a bit backwards because we always need the money, but just to have the support and just the help from the parents can really just make our life a lot easier in just getting kids out. And we've got about 130, 140 kids in the program at this point. And out of those kids that are racing, we're probably maximum 20 of those races.
And I'm guessing that you've probably surpassed Trexlertown, which has always been sort of historically the biggest track program in the country for junior development, but I think you may be ahead of them.
Maybe. I know it's fairly comparable in like what a lot we do and numbers. I think probably we've just turned over more kids over the years than now. I mean, we're certainly in excess of 1,200 kids since we've been around.
Yeah. So, Sarah, I pulled up the model and its challenges, and I'll let you speak to that for a moment about just how do you get more underserved kids in the program?
So the question is, how do we get more underserved kids in the program, or the question is, what is Devo's challenges?
Both. Well, both, but it's certainly that's the first question that came to my mind when I saw the slide.
Yeah. So, well, first, I think, like I said before, I think we could probably do a better job at getting more underserved kids in the program, but, we are dedicated to that, getting, our scholarship fund is $20,000. So that gets I wasn't expecting that question, but I could get back to you on how many kids that gets into the program. Could that scholarship fund be bigger? Yeah, it probably, could. And so there's that. And then within Devo's model and its challenges, I just kind of laid it out here. We have around 1,200 registrations per year on any given season. We have around 500 kids on a bike. And so it's a beast. It's a big, big undertaking, right? To figure out which coaches or which trailheads. The program managers just really do an awesome job. I think another important thing that is really different from Durango Devo is we don't rely on parent coaches. We really believe that coaching is a professionalized, it's not necessarily like a career path maybe, but rather we just really want our coaches to be prepared. And so they have to go through a coach training, and there's a lot of different steps to being a coach. And so we just want to make sure they're compensated for that. And we really it's not that we do have parents as coaches, but generally we are not looking to parents to be the coaches for the program. So that's one thing that's really, I think, different for us. And so I think, some of our challenges, for one thing, and so you skipped quite a few slides, so I'm trying to play catch up, but when you have 45% of your annual budget is, coming from other sources, before COVID, that focus was really on sponsorship. And so then all of a sudden, we lost business sponsorship. And so we had to sort of adjust really quickly. And so we did a lot more like online. And so I think that most nonprofits obviously suffered under COVID, but so that's just that was a challenge for us as well. And then, so now I can't see the other slide.
Sorry.
But I mean, everyone can kind of, I think there was somebody in the question and answer who said, can I get a copy of this presentation? Yeah, I can definitely download the PDF and send it to Sean.
Yeah. And we had a request to begin answering some of the questions, and I can't see those questions. So if either maybe Sean could help us with those questions.
I can see him.
Oh, can you? Okay.
Okay.
Jump in, Sarah. Jump in. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. I started an off-road cycling advocacy nonprofit, and I'm a NICA coach. We have a very diverse community, yet I would say it's 95% white and 85% males. Other tips on increasing diversity? Yeah. Pete, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. I don't know about tips. I think really is, for us, the majority, we've never advertised. Our rider base comes from first person referral. So I would say that really just go to, if you have, first of all, one of the things we did was the female side of things. We really wanted to increase the female riders. So we would ask the female riders, have you got friends that want to come to Star Trek? Do you have any of your classmates at school and things like that? So that started, and then in the end, over a period of time, we built the female riders up to so one point we made it 50-50, but now it's like 45% for females. So that really helps. Ethnicities, again, it's always been first person referral. So friends come along, and I think give it time, because once people feel comfortable and they understand that it's an open, inclusive policy for all, then you will find the diversity you're looking for and really what cycling needs, really.
So Sarah, just going to ask you about your proximity to the Ute Nation, Navajo Nation, the different tribal areas that are close to Durango. Do you have any participation there, or have you done any work in those communities directly?
Well, first, so Diva's pretty much 50% female, not only in our coaching staff, but also in our ridership. And so I would say that one of the best ways is to make sure you're an inclusive program and that you are breaking down barriers for riders to enter your program is it really has to do with trust. And so you want to make sure your coaching staff represents the group that you really want to recruit and have be more a part of your program. And so
Right
I
point.
think that's really important. That's right now, like Devo is working on being like being a much more accessible and gender inclusive program. And so it's really important to us that we are hiring staff that represent that for us. So that's for us just important. And then in terms of working with the indigenous population, we're the Southern Utes in Ignacio we're around 45 minutes away from them. And we do go and help a lot with the bike rodeos. We're a little too far for parents to drive into Durango for an after school program. I think we could probably do a little better job at recruiting for like our summer camps and things like that. But generally what we do is we go into those communities. And I mean, the goal generally is to make sure that community that we're letting those coaches coach their own kids, and that they just get a little bit of support from Devo in terms of like what games we play and how to start and finish a practice. But generally we like to help like the Navajo Nation we're working with for sure right now. And the goal is that, that they have all the tools that they need to run their own program versus
That's great.
Into Durango. Yeah. So
Super cool.
Were there other questions?
Can you provide an idea of how much you pay the coach, how much you pay the coaches, probably hourly or for the season? Pete, do you want to start?
Anywhere between $15 and $25 an hour.
Yep, we're around the same. We pay per practice. And so if you're a Devo junior coach, which is 5th grade and under, their head coach is $35 per practice, and a head coach of the upper level programs is $55 per practice. And then the assistants get paid a little bit less than that. And then we have trip. We compensate all the coaches for any trips, be that race or not raced. So yeah.
And I think that's, one difference that I would say exists between some programs is there are small programs around the country that are run by one program manager who is the coach, and their board sets their pay, and they may be paid $25,000 a year to $50,000 a year, depending on the location. But they are functioning as a nonprofit, and they work for a board of directors, and they're, one person show. And Laura Sharmeda and her program in Santa Rosa are a great example of that long running junior program for almost 25 years that she's run, where that's her livelihood, and she works for a board and they pay her. So Other questions?
How do you store your bicycles and equipment? How do you deal with insurance and liability? Very common
questions.
question.
For us, we have 3 shipping containers in the parking lot of Casino Velodrome, and they are absolutely packed with bikes and equipment and anything else that we might need. The older riders that are on the sort of like the travel team, if you wanted to call it that, they can bring their bikes home. They sign a release waiver to bring their bikes home so they can train at home. And insurance, we go through a private insurance company for our liability insurance. USA Cycling has some coverage, and also New York City Parks has a coverage for their sort of outreach programs.
Sarah, what about? Durango Devo, do you have a clubhouse?
I wish that we had a
Yeah,
clubhouse. That's
I
been
wish a
in our,
clubhouse.
that's been a big part of our vision for sure, is to have a clubhouse. But we generally just have an office, and it is stuffed full of equipment. But most kids, if we generally try and make sure the kids come to practice with their bikes. So we don't really store equipment for kids. If a kiddo needs a bike, we're generally giving them the bike either forever or maybe for the season. And then they give it back at the end of the season. And yeah, so the office probably has like 25 bikes in it right now. So that out of, 1,200 registrations, that's not that many bikes. And then, yeah, so we have a director and offices insurance, obviously, because we're a nonprofit, and van insurance, and then general liability insurance that's, through a private company. And we've switched liability insurance. Like, I want to say we switched just about every 3 years or so, just kind of looking for better policies that cover us as we grow and expand and diversify. So it's not, I'm trying to think of what our company is right now. It's off the top of my head, but I could get back to that person. That's a very common question, especially if you're a NICA program. If you're going to do something outside of NICA, you have to have your own separate liability insurance. So.
And I know USA Cycling, I was at a meeting last week and they were talking about new insurance policy, and it's different. And I couldn't tell you exactly how it's different, but I know there's a comprehensive club policy there. I will mention that El Grupo and the junior program in Tucson, they have 2 clubhouses. I don't know if they rent them or if they own them, but in talking to the coaches there, these clubhouses are just sort of central to their operation, and a place, really the after school place for their kids to be able to go to and meet. And so it's a cool concept. What else?
We would love one.
Yeah.
We would absolutely love one. But New York City, I think the cheapest place you could ever find is $6-7 grand a month. Just enough like for a hovel.
Yeah, we're in the same boat in terms of cost. Let's see. So, how does Star Track work with the city to get track time rental agreements?
Well, it's been since 2004, and the program was initially suggested by the city as part of the city's sort of diversity program to get the velodrome resurfaced. So they, as part of their Olympic bid, is what I'm trying to say. So they had a vested interest in it, and then over the years, we sort of make New York City Parks Department look good because now we're an extended arm of them in terms of bringing bicycles to the city and using the velodrome. So we have an agreement where we are, if you like, an approved vendor, and then we have to apply for our licenses and our permits every year, exactly the same as anybody else would for the track. We just sort of get it for free, really. That's about it.
Okay. I'm a Nike coach for a small all-girls Baltimore City team. Our challenge was getting students to trails and to races since their parents were often working or didn't have cars, and the NICA is strict about the no one-on-one contact. Do your coaches transport kids, and how do they work around the insurance liability to get the kids to places where you have to drive? And just really quickly, our coaches in Durango Devo do not transport kids beyond our vans. And then we have not only a training, but the coach has to be listed on our insurance policy in order to drive the kids in the van, but we do not drive kids in our personal vehicles.
Those days are gone.
Yeah. And I don't know, Pete, if you want to give your...
Well, I think really most importantly, we're all bound by the rules of safe sport. So a lot of those, as Steve said, those days are gone. So if we do transport kids, there'll be one of the parents with us or 2 of the parents with us or whatever it is. So even with the van with us, there has to be a good parent ratio in the van, and for the most part, we really don't do, same as Sarah, we don't really do private vehicle driving around
Transport. Yeah.
transport.
Yeah. And if people are interested in the Safe Sport guidelines, I believe they're available online, both at USA Cycling and through the Safe Sport website. It's a good program. I highly recommend that everybody, if you're not bound to take it and certify, I recommend you do it anyway. It's a very good program.
Good to take it morally, if nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you deal with ongoing bike maintenance?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you how you deal with 500, potentially 500 children in one day. You might have to have, what, 2 mechanics available at all times?
For Devo? Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, so a couple things. Most of our coaches, we do a trail side bike maintenance clinic with all our coaches, so all the coaches can deal with pretty small bike maintenance issues, and if not, they can at least get the kid riding so they can finish practice. And then, so at the end of practice, let's say, there was a bent hanger and, I did the best I could, but that bike, it needs a little TLC. And so I'll say to the parents, this bike should probably go to a shop. And then we have a relationship with all the shops so that Durango Devo kids get discounts on parts and service. And then we also have, at the start of the season, we have a bike check where we have the Fort Lewis College cyclists and other people from Fort Lewis colleges or the bike shops come and check out the kids' bikes at each practice. Although I think we might have gotten rid of that for COVID. There's a couple of things that we can't do during COVID.
Right.
But
yeah. And so, being a coach, I can just tell you that I deal with bike maintenance all the time.
All the time. Yeah. And Pete?
I think probably the easiest way to describe it is same.
Same.
Yeah, we all do the same. Everybody mucks in, everybody does something. One of the greatest things for us is that we deal with track bikes. So they're sort of super simple. Again, we have local arrangements with shops and stores that help us out. We have our own sort of trade accounts with a lot of different places, and we're lucky that we have parents that are good bike mechanics. We have a wonderful coach that is a bike mechanic, so we muddle through and get it all done. And if it can't be done, we'll just go pay for it. We know our limitations, so we'll have to when it starts doing derailleur adjustments, then let's go into the store.
So we have about 10 minutes left. How many more questions do you have there, Sarah?
I see one more question.
Yes.
One.
Well, I'll go ahead and chime in on the bike maintenance piece, because we actually modeled a bike loan program after El Grupo, and we have a clubhouse to store them. And at the beginning, it was just me as the mechanic, and that quickly ran its course as the number of bikes escalated. And so what we did is we started forming an informal training program for the juniors themselves to do the maintenance. And then they started building up race bikes, and we've gone forward from that to now we actually have a formalized training program. But because of COVID, we couldn't fully implement it. We're waiting to come out of COVID to fully implement the program. And so we actually have a full website that's built around it. And it's built around some of the other programs that already exist around the country that offer training programs for youth in a non-academic environment. I can't remember the other ones offhand, but I can. We call ourselves Bike Mech, BIKEMEK, and that was one of the juniors came up with the name for the program.
I think it's good. We've done the same thing, and I've just been texted to remind me to tell you that we actually do bike maintenance classes with our coaches as well. So the kids get a good handle on how to maintain those bikes, and they have to do their bike checks and and all that sort of stuff, all that fun stuff. But yeah, it's an ongoing thing for sure.
So before COVID, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I was just going to say, and a big part of our development and our mission with the kids is that the pie in the sky for us is that by the time they're 16 or 17, they completely know how to work on their own bikes and they're independent. So it's a big part of our program, just like you guys.
And I was going to mention that before COVID, Denver Parks and Rec work with Bicycle Colorado, the state advocacy organization, and they launched 3 programs at 3 different Denver Park and Rec. And the first day of the camp, it was a summer camp, and they had about 100 kids participate. They were all from inner city Denver. And the first day was building the bike. So they had to build the bike to begin with before they got started on their skills and safety work. And I thought that was a unique approach and a good way for kids to learn how to work on their bike.
Yeah.
So
there's a really good not-for-profit in New York City that does a similar thing. It's called Recycle a Bike, and basically there's just bins of spare parts, and kids from the inner city can go there. They can build their own bicycles. They learn how to do it, and then once they've built it, they can take that bike home, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So, Sean, I'll just say in closing, I wanted to thank all these people that are on this call that are doing work with juniors in all of their local and regional areas, and a special shout out to Randy, who's on the call, who's done a lot of work with juniors over the years and collegiate riders too. So thank you for the opportunity.
And I really want to thank all 3 of you, Steve, Pete, and Sarah, for coming on tonight and being part of this series where we're trying to educate everybody about the different processes that are going on around our country and seeing how diverse we have, seeing the diversity that we have and how to overcome the barriers that are facing each of us. All right. And I think we've addressed most of the questions here. And
there's one outstanding. Do we use GoFundMe, Patreon, or other personal fundraisers to pay ourselves to lead the programs? No. We all answer to a board when we're not for profit, and our salaries are determined by that board. Really.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and so, but just not to, I don't want to leave this person hanging, because I know what that feels like to be like, I can't keep doing this unless I figure out how to pay myself. I'm going to guess this is where this question is coming from. And so what I'd recommend to that person is, what the nice thing about having your program be a nonprofit is that part of that is having a board of directors, and that board of directors really is technically responsible for compensating you as an executive director and paying you for your time. And it's a teamwork thing, right? But still, it's like Pete said, it's the board of directors who sets the executive director's salary. And if there is a GoFundMe,
that's if you've got the ability to be a 501c3. And if you haven't, I think you're well within your rights to get paid for what you do. We all love what we do, and let's face it, every last one of us on this call does a lot more work than what we get paid for. And we all do incredible amount of hours. And I know Sarah does, and I know I do. We do this 7 days a week. 18 hours a day. There's always something going on, and you're not going to get paid for it. And that's one of the things that is probably the biggest commodity in this cycling world is the people. Everybody just gives their time, and we're surrounded by fabulous people, and it doesn't matter what team or program that you represent, everybody's doing the job, and they're doing it fabulously.
So one possible solution for that person, if they're not really in a position to start a 501c3, a lot of teams and clubs around the country have been very crafty about finding other 501c3s that have a similar mission for youth development, that they maybe can come under that umbrella. Yeah. So that's a possibility.
We did that. It's called having a fiscal sponsor, and we did exactly that. We piggybacked another 501c3 for the first probably 6 years of our existence.
Very common. Think about that.
I would follow up on that by saying that, the Youth Cycling Association is a 501c3 and can serve in that capacity to provide infrastructure and support for new organizations as they get their legs and work through these different things.
Right, that's really helpful.
I do want to give a shout out to juniorsmatter.com. I put their link in the chat box, and you can actually register your team there and get listed on their national map. So it's a national networking organization, so that we can link juniors with teams, in their local areas, which, we don't have a good access point for that. And this is a great way for that to happen. So if you know of juniors that are looking for riders and juniors looking for teams, this is a great resource point for that.
Right.
Any other closing last thoughts before we call it a night?
Not really. I'm glad to be here. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Steve, you did a marvelous job. And it's been a pleasure with doing this with Sarah. But I think really, if anybody needs any help, I mean, we can put it in the chat, and we can just send an email to info@startrack.nyc, which I could probably do right now. And
And you can always reach out. You'll be getting a follow-up notice for the webinar, and you can put any questions there, and I'll relay them off to the panelists also.
Right.
All right. With that, I want to say good night to everybody, and thanks again to Steve, Pete, and Sarah for coming on, and Katie for working the back channels.
Yep.
So have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.